And thank you for coming to talk to me. Can you just start by introducing yourself and tell us about the work you do?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Laurian Farrell, Deputy Commissioner for the Bureau of Coastal Resilience at the City of New York. And our job is to think through how we're going to address the challenges of the future coastal flooding that is coming our way in our 520 miles of coastline in the city. Thinking through tidal flooding, sea level rise, and coastal storm surge.
So does that include, like, I know recently there was floods in the subways. Would that count as part of the stuff that you're dealing with?
It's all part of it. I mean, so there are many different types of flooding, as you know, but and so others in DEP are managing the stormwater piece.
Uh-huh.
MTA is really doing a lot of work on their resilience as well, but all this water is connected. So while I'm thinking about specifically what's coming at us from the coast, we also have to think about how these systems work together and talk to the MTA often and hope to do even more talking about how do we connect not just the plans, but the resources to make sure we can get everything done that we need to.
And I imagine that that's a challenge to always figure out how to juggle the resources because everybody needs it at the same time, right?
Honestly, I feel like I'm an engineer, but my job is now leaning more and more into finance and funding. I think we have a lot of technical challenges, but the technical challenges we can solve for. It's really the more adaptive challenges. How do we make choices with the limited resources that we have, competing priorities, and make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck and co-benefits. And,
Right, of course. Of course.
So it's interesting work. It's very challenging. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, so I know we jumped around a little because you said so many interesting things, but I wanted you to take a little time to tell us about your experiences working to build community resilience. I mean, kind of where and when and how you got started doing the work that you do.
Well, I'm actually originally from Toronto. I live in New York City now. I've been here for a few years, but most of my career was spent in flood risk management in Toronto as a water resources engineer. And I started out, I think, as most like a very typical story where we would have our projects. We would be mandated to have 2 public meetings through the environmental legislation required us to do it. And we would check the box on those meetings. And they were very, very scary. None of us wanted to do them. We always dreaded them. Eventually, I got to the point where there has to be a better way to do this, and also reached the understanding that we weren't really, what we felt we were designing or solving for wasn't always connected with what the communities actually needed. And so digging around a little bit, I came across 100 Resilient Cities, Rockefeller program, fell in love with this whole concept of holistic urban resilience, got connected to chief resilience officers across different cities, which also allowed me to speak to people of many different disciplines. And so it's a long way of getting to the point, which is I learned through this experience, especially for people who are working with a lot of indigenous communities, the question we were always asking ourselves, which was how can we get the public to trust us, was the wrong question. We should be asking, how do we begin to trust the public? And
I like that.
It changed everything I do, my whole perspective. Once I heard that, I'm like, oh, that is different. It changed my approach from one of, well, let's just check these boxes and get through it, to let's actually create spaces where I have an opportunity to listen to what people need and make sure that I'm solving for the right problem. That's sort of the approach I take now. And then there are lots of different mechanisms for, doing community engagement.
Right.
I'm not the expert in that by any means, but just starting from that point has made everything more effective.
I can completely imagine that, right? Before we talk about challenges, so I guess you brought all these lessons here to all the coastline here in New York City, right? And so maybe tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced and how you've overcome them. And I would love it for you to talk, if you can, specifically about in the work that you do here in New York City.
Yeah, definitely. The challenges around community engagement.
Yes.
So
in general, the other resilience building parts, if you want to, but the community engagement part, because I'm so interested in how you're learning from the community. There's so many communities here.
To be honest, the Bureau of Coastal Resilience is fairly new in the city of New York, and it was created because after, it's almost 13 years now since Hurricane Sandy touched down here on our shores. There's been a ton of work done, but we now need to think through, well, what's next?
Right.
What about the areas that weren't impacted by Sandy? We don't have plans for those areas yet. And the journey of the last 12 years to build infrastructure design was challenging. Everybody was learning a new class of assets that we've had to build. So through that process, we've had a lot of, I'm told, because I wasn't here at the time, but a lot of lessons learned about how to work with communities and building trust.
Right.
And so my job now is to take that information and to sort of design opportunities for us to talk to the public more. So the next thing we're going to do, we need to go through around our whole 520 miles of coast. Recognize that there are a lot of different communities, a lot of different typologies of shoreline.
Right.
And we need to hear from people what they want the future of our coastline to be. So we're going to be holding a whole series of coastal labs and
Are you going to go like mile by mile or some other?
mile by mile. I don't know any other way to do it that would actually have people feel that they're a part of making the vision of our future, because it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
And if we develop a vision ourselves and then present it, that's doomed for failure.
Yes, for
So I
sure.
think we're ready to do the hard work and really dive in and spend the time.
That sounds so valuable and so like the way to do it really bottom up and connect with the communities, which just sounds fabulous. I guess the last thing I was going to ask you about is as we look forward at the extreme events that are likely to come as the world warms, and you in New York City are preparing for that. What's your advice about how to be more resilient and how to really connect better with communities as you move forward?
Well, I think we need to be honest about the challenges that we face and talk about them and not beat around the bush. I know that's a really hard thing to do these days. It's always been hard because there's always been different camps of people that want competing priorities of how we're going to use our shorelines. Right. But the fact is that we're facing 5.5 feet of sea level rise in New York City.
5.5 feet.
5.5 feet.
Wow.
It is
In what timeline?
2100, and that's the 90th percentile. So that is the higher estimate, but that's what we need to prepare for.
Of course.
How can we continue to build cities without that in mind? All of our infrastructure for drainage relies on that number. And so we have to be honest. We have to talk about it. We have to speak the hard truths, like he's saying, and then work with people to where they're at so that we bring them along in the conversation at a pace that is comfortable, because we're going to have to be making some really tough choices in the future.
I can completely understand. Yeah, for sure. The last question, though, is so given our political challenges that we're facing right now, are you experiencing differences in how you're doing the work here in New York City, or do you feel like because you guys are kind of already on a path, you've been able to stay the course? Because I know there's been a lot of issues with regard to federal funding disappearing, et cetera. So I'm just curious.
Undoubtedly, it's impacted our ability to do the work, and we've had to reset some of our framing of the challenges. The good news is that there's I'll say it's good news, but it's a kind of tongue-in-cheek way of saying it. There's something in this for everybody. Everybody has a point of entry into making sure that New Yorkers are safe and that we have resilient communities.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of finding or framing the challenge in a way that people can get behind. And so if you don't want to talk about coastal resilience or sea level rise, we can talk about economic development. We can talk about generational wealth. We can talk about just public safety and health. And I think, just making sure we bring everybody to the table, continue to do that is our goal, and don't take our, foot off the pedal. We just have to do this work.
I'm so glad to hear you're doing it. It's so necessary. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you so much.
Take care.